Welcome to this week's live Q&A. I'm Rosalia Rivera for Consent Parenting here on Substack. I'm excited that you're here because I have really one of the most asked questions from parents who have maybe started doing some education on body safety or abuse prevention. And now they're somewhat concerned because they're not sure if they're seeing signs or what are the signs that they should be looking for if they suspect that something is happening to their child. Now, this is really a much harder question than I think anybody wants to admit, because the signs, the traditional signs that parents can look for, aren't always the signs that indicate something's happening. And there's multiple reasons for it. So I'm going to jump into what the signs are, what the signs could also be, which is hard because it makes it seem like, well, then anything can be a sign. And yes and no. I'm going to explain how you can determine if those signs might be something. And then, of course, what do you do if you do see those signs? So let's dive into it today. Sorry I'm late, by the way. If you saw that I was supposed to be on at 8 a.m. today Pacific, which is 11 a.m. Eastern. And it is 45, almost 45 minutes later, was having some technical difficulties, and then mom life got in the way. So thanks for your patience. I'm here and I'm excited to answer this question because I hope that it helps parents maybe like you or caregivers figure out if something is going on and then take action to intervene and protect your child. All right, so let's dive into it. What are some of the signs? So there are both behavioral signs and physical signs. We're going to start with the physical. These are probably the ones that you would look for if your child's really young, if they're preverbal. But there are behavioral changes too in children who are quite young and preverbal. So physical signs that you want to look for are any kind of bruising, rashes, redness, either in genital areas or even the mouth. Unfortunately, that a lot of times gets used as a way to cover up that something is happening, and an offender might do that. And so parents aren't looking at maybe there's a rash around the mouth or maybe even cuts either inside the mouth or around the lips. But you want to look for those kinds of things also in the genital areas. So vaginal, anal, but also even with penises, like there may be some potential there for that too. So keeping an eye out for that. If you see that on a regular basis, be sure that you're documenting this information. If your child is verbal, check in with them. Ask if they know what happened. Sometimes a child is told to explain it away as they fell down or they jumped on something. Maybe it was a bicycle. Maybe it was bars at a playground or something. See how genuine that feels from the child. Listen to your gut also. I always want to remind parents of that because sometimes we want to second guess ourselves. We want to doubt ourselves. We want to say, oh, maybe I'm being paranoid. That couldn't possibly be the reason, right? And then we don't ask the questions or we just, explain away something. So if you feel like your child did say something that doesn't feel authentic, like it was almost scripted, pay attention to that. So bruising, lacerations of some kind, like a cut, and of course, rashes, if you're seeing a lot of rashes. In girls, a lot of times they could have frequent UTIs. A lot of times pediatricians will dismiss it as just a UTI like frequency. And that's problematic because if they're not asking the right questions, they may not even consider that as a possible explanation for the constant UTIs. So that's another physical sign. A very obvious red flag is an STI or a sexually transmitted infection. If you're seeing this, if this is what's diagnosed at the pediatricians or the hospital, that's very obvious evidence that there is something happening. So keep an eye out for those things: bruising, rashes, UTIs, STIs, all could be, well, with the exception of the last one, all could be pointing to something else. Now, you want to see if there is other behavior paired with that physical sign, but sometimes there's not. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But if you can see the pattern that's happening alongside this, then there's a high chance that something's going on. And this is when you want to dig deeper and see if you can investigate a little bit more. Okay, the next thing is behavioral. Now, this also varies based on age, but for the most part, it can be with any age. So keep an eye out for these things. There could be a change in sleep, so sleep disturbances, night terrors, bedwetting, regressive behavior. So if your child is beyond bedwetting, if they are beyond thumb sucking, if they are beyond other behaviors that now they're regressing back to, that could be a sign. Um, as I said, night terrors, sleep disturbances, being afraid to go to bed, things like that. If you are noticing even eating pattern changes, they are eating less, or maybe they're eating more, maybe they're overeating, or the opposite, they could be refusing food. Those could be possible signs. We typically see these things in combination. So it's not just a one isolated thing. So keep that in mind as you are considering, could these, be something that is pointing to that. Some other behavioral things that you may notice is they are not interested in seeing certain people that they used to love seeing. On the contrary, it could still be quite the opposite. It depends on where they are in the process. And what I mean is the offender may still be grooming the child. They may still really want to go see that person. They may still really want to hang out with that friend. I just want to remind you here and pause for a second that abuse can happen by peers just as well as by adults. And in fact, it is a higher percentage by peers. And so those could be siblings included, cousins, step siblings, anyone who is either living in the home or outside of the home who is um, either the same age, 2 to 3 years older, or much older. So it's important to just be aware of who our kids are hanging out with and limiting one-on-one with anyone, including kids. And what that means is not that you have to avoid play dates or things like that. It's just trying to make sure that you're providing the right supervision, that there's line of sight, doors are open, in bedrooms, no basements that are far away that where, you can't hear things or be able to peek in and keep a close eye. So just keep those things in mind. The other thing too is making sure that we're paying attention to behavior that is age appropriate. So what that means is if you're seeing, this maybe push to play games that maybe like doctor or family or relationships, those can be totally fine and normal and appropriate. But if you notice that they start to become more inclined towards physical interaction, so things like where they're kissing or where they are asking another child to look at private parts or to touch private parts, or ask another child or adult to do that to them. It could be like, "Hey, tickle me here," or where you notice that there is this sort of push towards this kind of behavior at every opportunity or at opportunities with certain people, with peers or adults. This is a opportunity for you as a parent or caregiver to intervene and redirect and educate. I've talked about this before, where when we see a behavior, even if it is age appropriate curiosity, we want to intervene, redirect, and educate. It's essentially an opportunity for us to step in and say, hey, I noticed that you're doing this. It's actually not age appropriate. You're not supposed to be doing this at this age. You're not supposed to be touching those parts, private part safety. Let's remember. And why don't you guys go do this instead? So you've stopped the behavior, you've redirected it to them doing something else, and you've educated, reminded, hey, this is not something that we do. That's not okay. We want to make sure that we keep our hands to ourselves, or that we are not touching private parts, right? So making sure that you do that. Now, a pretty clear yellow flag is if, despite the redirection, the child continues to try to do it, whether it's with the same child, different children, with adults. If it's definitely with adults, that's much more of a red flag than a yellow flag. But we want to pay attention to these things. If you are redirecting, educating, intervening, and it's not stopping the behavior, you keep seeing it on future play dates or even in the same play date, want to continue doing the redirection education piece. But if you're seeing that that's not working, that's a sign that something's going on and that we want to maybe create some physical separation, physical distance between those two people. And a lot of times that's between kids, but it can also, of course, be between an adult. And if you're noticing that the adult isn't like doing what's appropriate, like, hey, that's not okay, you can't touch me there. Whereas the adult might be putting the child on the lap, or they might be tickling them, in where they asked to be tickled. That's a red flag. So when we see behavior that goes beyond what's age appropriate, where we see it's repetitive, that's red flag behavior. If you're noticing that behavior has become coercive, so you found out that your child is doing something to another child or with another child that is not age appropriate, and they've asked the child to keep it a secret, or they've threatened the other child to not tell, those are behaviors that point to, one, the child is aware that it's inappropriate, and two, they are using some kind of force, threat, bribe, blackmail, like coercion. That is also a sign that either they have had that experience themselves or they're aware of their power imbalance. So that's another pretty clear sign that something's going on, whether they've been exposed to something or have experienced something themselves and are now mimicking that behavior. The other thing is, you can just notice a change in behavior. Your child used to be very happy and outgoing, and now they're suddenly very sullen and withdrawn. Those are also behaviors to pay attention to. Now, that can be from multitude of things. Sometimes families are in the middle of a divorce or separation, or there's some other family situation that is causing strife. Maybe it's financial, maybe it's domestic violence, etc. So it could be other things, but if you feel like there's nothing really that is creating a lot of disruption in my child's life, but suddenly their behavior is different, that's something to pay attention to. For older children, you may see also things like self-harm. They're starting to cut themselves. They're starting to do things that are out of character. They seem depressed without any reason, or anxious without any specific reason that you can evidently see. Maybe they are starting to abuse some kind of substance, whether it's alcohol or drugs. These are things that, obviously are going to be concerning for any reason, but particularly could be something that points to that. And we typically see these things in combination. So you may see over sexualized behavior, in combination with self-harm, in combination with, depression, etc. So when you're seeing multiple things, then that's where you would say, okay, something else is going on here. Now, you can also have the opposite, and that's where it gets tricky. You can have a child that isn't showing any of these signs. In fact, they're excelling. They're doing really well. They are overachieving at school. They are on the honor roll. They seem hyper-focused. Maybe they're a people pleaser, and so they're just towing the line on anything and everything to make parents happy and unsuspecting of what's happening to them because maybe they're terrified that something could happen to the family if the offender has used the family as a threat. There are lots of reasons why a child would be terrified to say anything. And so the automatic response is to do whatever it takes to hold on to that secret and to look as normal as possible. It could also be that they feel a lot of shame and that if the parents were to find out, they would love them less. So they do everything they can to paint the perfect picture of being a good kid. Um, and so you can have both sides of that coin. You can have kids who suddenly become very angry and disruptive in the classroom, and they're sort of lashing out behavior could be a sign. It could be a cry for help that they don't know how else to express the anger that they're feeling inside. On the flip side, it could be that they are perfect like angels and are overachievers, and you almost feel like they are taking on a lot because that's how they keep busy, how they keep their mind off of things. So, unfortunately, if you're seeing some of those things, it may seem like everything is fine, yet the child is in distress. And so, really, the biggest thing here that I want to say is it comes down to parental attunement. Parental attunement means being as tuned into your child as possible, which in the bigger picture means having good communication with your child and knowing, not feeling, but knowing that your child feels safe to come to you, to talk to you. They have demonstrated that they're doing that. And so you really know what's going on with them. You are attuned, right? You are connected. You have a bridge that you are both able to cross back and forth to communicate and to talk about things. And so when things shift from that, you are more tuned in to go, hey, something's off. Something's not right. Our communication's off. I'm not feeling like they I feel like they're keeping something to themselves, not necessarily hiding, but they're reserving information that they might be scared to talk about, that they might be scared to tell. And so this is why having regular conversations about body safety can actually help a child disclose because they may not know how to go about it. They may not know how to say something. They might be terrified. And so if we don't talk to kids to say, it's okay to tell me if something's going on, I would never blame you for something. It's never your fault if something happens to you. Even if you feel like you were tricked into participating in something and then you realize this isn't what I signed up for, it's still okay to tell me and you won't be in trouble. I'm not going to be mad at you. I promise my love for you will never change. It's unconditional. And kids knowing and hearing that on the regular, having that demonstrated is important and powerful and a way that will keep the doors open for kids to feel safe to disclose. But also, without the education piece, they won't know what to disclose. You could ask them, and they may not know that what's happening to them is wrong. And they may not tell you because of it. So, having the education piece, which means teaching them about body safety, teaching them about private part safety, about secret safety, about exit strategies, teaching them about red flag behavior, teaching them how to report. All of those things are key. And books are really great ways to do that. So, this is kind of a little bit of a plug to remind you that I do have many book reviews already available for you to check out. If you haven't and you're interested in getting a book for your child's age, just read a really great one yesterday called Consent for Kids. Um, and that one is great for that middle childhood stage between 6 and 10, which is the ages that I recommend it for. And these books can be so helpful for parents who don't know how to start these conversations. And it gives kids the tools and the language to recognize if something has happened to them, they can say, hey, this character is going through or what this book is talking about is happening. And it helps you be able to create a space for them to disclose. Now, if you haven't done all those things, or if you have and you're like, it's not working, but I still have this sense that something's going on, this is where I would say bringing in a play therapist could be helpful, but also just continuing to educate and to continue to create that safe space. Do not ask leading questions. Do not say, hey, did so and so do this to you? That is not helpful. And also remember the tone. When we ask questions, we want to stay neutral, we want to stay calm, and we want to remind our kids that there is nothing too big for them to tell us that we can't handle. So, those are my recommendations for behaviors to look for, but also how to stay attuned and how to respond. I go a little bit deeper on these things in a blog that I did called Parental Attunement, which has more questions of ways that you can ask your child if something is happening and other ways to investigate a little bit further, so that you can figure out like who is in my child's life that might be a concern. So I hope that that was helpful for today's Q&A. If you have other questions, feel free to send them to me, either message me directly or post them in this video below or any of my Q&As. If you are a free member, you are able to watch this for free, and the replay is only available for paid members. So thank you if that's you, if you're a paid member. Thank you for supporting this work. It really does mean a lot to me and my ability to continue creating content that helps parents. So, thanks for being here today on a Saturday. I'm Rosalia Rivera, founder of Consent Parenting, a child sexual abuse prevention specialist and educator, here to help parents learn how to not only educate their kids, but the adults in their kids' lives. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next time.